Happy Wednesday. So, last week I talked about the whole concept of loving your food too much to change the way you eat, and what sort of like what love actually means when we talk about loving our food. Today, I want to talk about people who say that they can't eat healthy or they have trouble eating a healthy diet because the new foods just don't taste as good as regular or normal foods. And as a result, they tend to slip up. So I want to talk about that today and why that isn't actually true and why we need to look at love or maybe redefine what we mean by love in a slightly different way. So hi everybody, I'm Ricki Heller from rickiheller.com, and I help you learn to love your food on a restricted diet so that you can stop focusing so much on the food and really look at living your very best life. So if you didn't see last week's video, you can go ahead and take a look. It's on my page at Ricki Heller page on Facebook. And I talked about this whole definition of loving food and the concept that in order to really love your food, we need to really focus on it completely and give it the attention it deserves, which is true. But I think that when we look at what love means in real life, it can mean something different too. So I'm going to talk about that there. But what I want to talk about today, when we look at not being able to love the new foods maybe quite as well as our older foods or our so-called normal foods, there are two things to keep in mind. One is your tastes can change over time, and the other is that there are options out there so that you can love your food, but maybe in a slightly different way. So let me explain what I'm talking about. Hey, welcome. Um, the first thing to think about when you say, I love ice cream or I love pizza, but when I have the gluten-free version or the dairy-free version or the sugar-free version, it just doesn't taste as good. Well, the first thing to consider is that your tastes can actually change, and they will change over time. So, if I said to you, think about what was your favorite food when you were 5 years old. Mine was Captain Crunch cereal or chocolate milk and saltines with peanut butter. Well, that's not my favorite food today, right? Like your tastes will change. And so it's going to work the same way with food. And you're going to find that as you continue to eat your healthy diet, those older things won't appeal to you the same way that they do now. And there's a story I love to tell. So a while back, I was an organic baker. I was a baker for restaurants before I went organic, actually. And I was baking for this vegan restaurant. I did cookies, brownies, muffins, coffee cake, a whole bunch of stuff. And this guy was simply vegan, right? So he didn't care if it was healthy. He just wanted it to be free of any animal products. So at the time, and we're going way back now, at the time I was using white flour, white sugar, Crisco shortening, so white ingredients, Crisco shortening, and I guess like soy milk or something like that. And I was making all this stuff and it was great and it was selling out every week and people loved it. And then I changed my diet because of health reasons. And I felt like I just couldn't bake that stuff anymore, even though I wasn't consuming it. I just didn't even want to bake it for him anymore. So I told him that I had changed my diet and he said, no problem. We kind of went our separate ways. But then about, I'm going to say a year and a half later, I got a frantic call from him because his new baker had quit suddenly and he had nobody to make stuff for his restaurant. And he asked me, would I just this one time for this weekend bring in some of the old types of stuff that I used to bake for him? So I said, okay, sure. And I went out and I bought, just as much as I needed of the white flour and sugar just for one batch of muffins or whatever it was I was baking. And I baked it all up. And, I said to my husband, I guess we should taste it before I sell it to him because I want to make sure that it's good, right? I hadn't baked that way in so long. And we each took a bite of this muffin. And honestly, it was like, I felt like I was chewing on a cotton ball. Like it had no flavor. It just seemed lifeless. And my husband said, like, did you make this different? Like it was the same restaurant and the same recipe. And I realized that's what I had been baking before. And in that short time, my taste had changed because I had been eating these beautiful whole food ingredient, whole grain baked goods that I've been making since then. And they were, they had intense flavors and they were full of nutrition. And I had become totally accustomed to eating that way and loving that new food. And these old muffins, not only did they taste like they had no flavor. All I could taste was how sweet they were. There was like no actual taste. It was just sweetness. And it was not appealing, I will tell you. So you're going to find that the longer you stay eating healthy foods and whatever your diet is, whether it's gluten-free or sugar-free, the longer you stay within that healthy framework, your tastes are going to change. And it's at the, I say this all the time, but it's true. It's at the point with me now where I could walk by a buffet of cakes and cookies and pastries and all the things that I used to binge on all the time. And it is literally, they have no power over me anymore. They've lost their power. There's nothing drawing me to that table anymore. I couldn't care less if it was right in front of my face. And that will happen for you too if you adopt your diet and stick with it. So don't think that just because you don't love it today doesn't mean you're not going to love it as your body adjusts and realizes all the good you're doing for your body. Your body's going to give you feedback and it's going to start to crave those healthy foods. Like I said, um, that muffin had no flavor for me. And I find myself now, if I go just a few days without eating leafy greens, I mean, kale is my favorite, but I love them all. I really do. I love chard. I love dandelion greens. I love spinach. I love arugula. I love them all. And if I have like just a couple of days where I can't eat those for whatever reason, if I'm traveling or whatever, my body literally craves those greens and I miss them like crazy, just almost as much as I miss my husband. Almost, I'll say. It's close. So your body changes and you will love those foods too. But the second thing is people say to me, okay, maybe, but I never get that far because I will start eating this way and I just don't enjoy it and I miss my old foods too much. And then I fall back and I go and I have a brownie or I have some ice cream or I have nachos or whatever. So in a case like that, I want you to consider that there are different ways to achieve the same result. And you can still love those foods, but maybe love them in a different way. So, if I was thinking about recently because I was talking to a friend about our taste in music. Now, my husband is an audiophile, so he loves music and he tinkers with his stereo all the time. Like that's his baby, right? So because he spends so much time listening to music, we have, and I happen to have because I saved them all from teenagehood, but he also had a huge collection of record albums, like the old vinyl albums, right? And we also have a collection of CDs because we bought CDs during the when that was the next thing after albums. And so if he wants to listen to music, he loves music. He loves it. But he has a choice, right? He can listen to an album on the stereo with a turntable. He can listen to a CD in the CD player. He can listen to MP3 files. He could listen to Spotify if he wanted to, a streaming service. He could listen to the radio. And each one of those, he's going to hear music that he loves, right? So just because he loves one kind of music doesn't mean he wouldn't love another kind. And I found the same thing happen when I first changed my diet. I love sweet things. I love sweet treats. I love chocolate. And I knew I couldn't do without that when I first switched my diet. So there was no way I was going to give all that up just because I couldn't have gluten, sugar, eggs, dairy. So because of my background as a baker, I was able to play with all the ingredients and create new versions of those things that I loved just as much. So I still have chocolate. I still have brownies, chocolate chip cookies, truffles, ice cream, whatever the sweet treats are that I love, I still have them, but they're in a slightly different format. And so don't discount the possibility that you won't love the new forms of these things. You don't have to give them up. You're just going to be consuming them in a slightly different version, just like the difference between the album or the CD. They're both great and they both deliver the same satisfaction of listening to music, but in a slightly different format. So that's a second thing where while your body's adjusting to gluten-free or sugar-free or dairy-free or egg-free, you're able to still consume those foods and really, really enjoy them. And the reason this is so important is because if you keep falling off your diet and you keep breaking it to go and eat those normal foods, your body eventually is going to say, I can't take this anymore, right? And you may have noticed this if you're on a special diet for health reasons, that every time you break it, your symptoms are a little bit worse, or they flare a little bit stronger, or it takes a little bit more time to get back to balance when you correct the diet again. And what's happening is over time, your body is becoming more inflamed and your organs are becoming more damaged. And it's harder for the body to recover because every time there's an insult to your body, it's like punching yourself over and over and over. It becomes harder and harder to get back to that place of complete health. So it's to your benefit to stick with it and to stick with it until your body heals. And what you're going to find is at the end of the journey, you'll be able to achieve that improved health that you are seeking, and you will feel so much better. I know for me, it was amazing the difference between when I even just would sometimes so-called cheat a little bit, and when starting in 2009, when I stopped doing that, and I was able to stick with my diet long enough that my symptoms went away. And I feel now better than I felt physically 20 years ago. So I want that for you too. And it's just simply a matter of acknowledging that maybe there's a different kind of love that you can have for this food and sticking with it long enough that your body is able to start getting better, and then that message is going to be conveyed to your brain. And when you feel better, you're not going to want to eat those foods anymore because you're going to be in a place that you want to be in terms of your energy and fatigue, and not waking up feeling so tired that you have to drag yourself out of bed, and not walking around with cramps every time you eat a meal, and so on and so on. So that's my feeling about how to love your new food. I would love to hear what you think. Please do leave me some comments below. Let me know how it's going for you. Let me know what is the challenge for you when it comes to changing your diet. What's the thing that you find the hardest to overcome? And I will be happy to talk about that, and maybe we can look at ways for you to get over that hurdle too. In the meantime, if you're looking for some more support around this, I have a really quick guide for you called 3 Simple Shifts to Stick With It Right Now. It's a free guide that tells you 3 strategies you can use to help you stick with your healthy diet. And you just go to rickiheller.com/3 simple shifts. It's the number 3 and then simple shifts. And you can sign up for that right there. All right, everybody, I really hope this was helpful. Let me know what you think. Let me know how it's going for you as well. And I will talk to you again next time. Bye for now.